Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the SECO Utility Management Reporting webinar. I will go ahead and welcome everyone and get started. We will be sharing some useful information and material on the reporting tool and who and what is required for reporting, as well as dive into benchmarking with Energy Star. I'm Liz John, the Chief Operating Officer of SPEAR. We're a nonprofit regional energy efficiency organization, and our territory is Texas and Oklahoma. We have over 70 members, and our mission is to advance energy efficient products and services in our region and promote policies and provide education that accelerate the adoption of these efficient technologies and research. SECO has been a long-time partner and funder for SPEAR for our HVAC training and education throughout the state, as well as for our Community Efficiency Leadership Coalition program, where we work closely with local governments and higher education to foster collaboration, share best practices, and provide education on energy reporting and management. I will allow the other speakers to introduce themselves later on whenever they start to present. SECO, the State Energy Conservation Office, collects annual utility and fuel use data along with energy and water management plans from state agencies and higher education institutions each October. This data is compiled and published on the SECO Energy and Water Reporting webpage, and this is required by the Texas Government Code Section 447.009D. The Utility Management Reporting Tool compiles self-reported data from state entities on energy, water, and fuel use, as well as conservation goals, strategies, and other plans to reduce some of this energy use and water consumption. The information is published as submitted, and it's worth noting that there is no verification done by SECO. More specifically, the online reporting tool focuses on management plans for water and energy, annual building energy consumption data from Energy Star's Portfolio Manager, which we will cover later on in this webinar, and quarterly reporting on fleet management, which we will also discuss. As mentioned, Texas law requires state agencies and higher education institutions to set reduction goals for electricity, water, gas, and natural gas use, and for this to be documented and reported in a comprehensive energy and water management plan. This is also referred to as EWMP. This standardizes reporting, and past reports since 2005 are also available from SECO upon request. This PDF link that's provided below is a step-by-step walkthrough for creating an account on benchmarking your building in Energy Star's Portfolio Manager if you have not done so previously. SECO has chosen to use Energy Star Portfolio Manager as the online tool for these agencies to report their water, electricity, and natural gas usage. Energy Star Portfolio Manager offers several key benefits, among many others, such as identifying savings opportunities. It can help highlight inefficiencies and help prioritize upgrades that reduce energy and water consumption. It's great for performance measurement, so it also provides a standardized score rating from 1 to 100, so you can compare your building's energy consumption use against other similar buildings nationwide and also in your region that matches similar weather patterns, building size, occupancy, and it's also great for data tracking and reporting. The Office of Vehicle Fleet Management oversees the state vehicle reporting system, collecting fleet data such as inventory and operating costs from these agencies. The Office of Vehicle Management is also a central repository for all state vehicle fleet information. The OVFM manages the Texas Fleet Management System, and this is where agencies report and track vehicle data, maintenance, cost. We will also touch on this a little bit later on. And the Office of Vehicle Fleet Management compiles this information into a biennial report, provides it to the legislature with fleet status and improvement recommendations. All right, Jonathan.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jonathan, and I'm with SECO, the State Energy Conservation Office. A quick introduction. I was an intern at SECO this past summer, and I started officially about a month and a half ago, and I'll be presenting on the Utility Management Report and the Energy Water Management Plan portion. And so first, I'm going to show you the login screen. This is the login screen, and the link is right here, and I will show you how to navigate to that screen later on. And first, for our first time users, we will create an account, or if you already have an account, you'll go ahead and log in. And so you'll go ahead and click create an account. And we go next. So this is what pops up. So you'll input all your information, and the state agencies has a drop-down menu where it has all of the state agencies and institutions. And if you are reporting for more than one institution, you could go ahead and select as many as institutions as you need. And you will go ahead and sign up. And we go next. So this is the drop-down menu where you would select your agency or institution. And you could select multiple institutions, and every time you select an institution, they will automatically pop up and their agency number will appear too. And then you would sign up. And then code will be given to your email, and then you enter the code and make sure it's right, and you confirm. And you go next. And then it will automatically bring you back to the start page. So you will fill out the information and log back in. And go next. And this will be the first page that you see when you actually log in. And if you select multiple institutions or agencies, there will be a drop-down menu to select one institution per application. So you'll have to complete an application for every agency that you select. But here is a screenshot of just one agency that was selected. So it would just appear like this. And of course, you would do the implementation contact info if that's a different person than the person reporting the information. And you will continue and save or hit next page. So right here is the first page, and just to set the deadlines, the applications will only be accepted October 1st through October 31st, and late submissions will not be accepted. And under the box, other agencies included in the summary, you would only fill in that box if you have other organizations, reporting organizations that have their energy bills pulled into the one that you're reporting for. And as you can see, there's 3 questions. And the first question will ask, have you submitted your energy water usage? Yes or no. The next question is, does your agency maintain or own state-owned vehicles? Yes or no. And this last question will determine the rest of the application. It is, does your agency occupy or manage a state-owned building and pay utilities? So is your state agency or institution a providing agency or a tenant agency? So if it's a providing, they pay your own utilities. And if it's a tenant, then you don't pay your own institutions. So if you click yes, and then we go to the next page, this is what the form will look like. And you have all these categories and boxes: progress reports, goals, strategies, implementation schedule, financial strategies, and employee awareness plan. And so right here, you fill out these boxes, and these boxes have limited formatting tools. So you could number, you could bullet, but you can't insert tables or images. And you will need to if you request, you could have your submission deleted later, but if you email me later. So let's say you submit your application, but you realize you want to do over, you made a mistake, you could always have the application deleted For the chat that said that well, I'll answer the questions at the end. Sorry for that.
Okay, we can get back to
Yes.
that.
Yes. So, and then this is what appears instead of the last slide. If you select the no option, you would only have two boxes to report on: the progress report and the employee awareness plan. And that's only if you have something to report. And so you would fill out the information and then you save and select, and then you continue to review form once you are completed. So then it will show you a summary of all the inputted information, and you make sure that's correct, and you click submit. And so now I will show you the actual how to navigate to the website. So I'll share my screen. Okay, so this is the comptroller website. And so to navigate to the SECO, you go to programs and you go to SECO. So the UMR and energy water management plan will be under energy reporting and state agency institutions. So you scroll down and it will be this link right here to submit your energy and water man plan, which is open right here. So I would create an account if I haven't yet, but I already have. So this is what appears when I log in right away, just like on the slide. This next page, and this is just a sample institution. And you could always hit the save button to save your answers, and so you don't have to fill it out the same time that you log in. You could fill it out in increments if you would like. And here's let me show you so right here, the last question. So I will show you if you were a providing institution, and this is what it would show. So you have a progress report, goals, water, everything you would need to fill out if you are a providing agency. And let me show you a sample. So this is a sample, a guide of if you are a providing agency. So progress report, say what you did in the last year or the progress of all your energy related projects, and the goals, what are future goals, milestones for energy related milestones or projects too. And then the strategy, so you describe the goals that you previously mentioned. And this document will be available later in the follow-up email. And this implementation schedule, your schedule for current conservation projects that you have upcoming. And financial strategy, how will you fund these projects? And then an employee awareness plan. How will you raise awareness for your employees, both directly and indirectly? And also for best practice, even though there is a save button in the portal itself, you should always save your answers like on a separate document. So in case for some reason it doesn't save, you have all the information that you need. Okay, so we're back in the summary, and all you have to do is make sure everything is correct and click submit, and then you will be done for that agency. But if you're submitting multiple agencies, you will have to do the process for every agency.
Right. Now we will cover benchmarking. And Asma, I can either advance the slides for you or you can take control.
I can take control.
Okay. And thank you everyone for your questions. We will get to those.
Okay, is everybody able to see my full screen here? Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everybody. So my name is Asma Dalzim. I am the owner of Royal Global, and it is a consulting firm, and we primarily focus on commissioning and retro commissioning opportunities for commercial facilities, and a lot of being able to commission and retro commission or identify the opportunity for energy efficiency improvement or just overall optimization is by benchmarking, which is really what we're going to focus on here. So benchmarking is the opportunity for us to determine how much our building is consuming and being able to compare the overall performance over a specified period of time. Now, the starting point before we even get to the point of benchmarking is being able to have a detailed and comprehensive energy management plan in place. And energy management, the definition of that is being able to monitor the performance of the building and being able to track and record and gather all the required information into one place or one platform or one process, to making sure that we have all the comprehensive information for proper assessment of performance, and more importantly, to making sure that we're not jeopardizing the integrity of our building, we're not jeopardizing the safety of our building occupants, and not leaving an opportunity of where we could otherwise improve overall energy efficiency. So energy management, this process of monitoring, controlling, and identifying opportunities for energy improvement here really helps us increase our energy efficiency, because it's a continuous process of identifying how our building is performing. And because it is continuous, it therefore allows us an opportunity to continuously identify opportunities to increase efficiency. It gives us a path that we're not reactive also to our building. If we are continuously monitoring our building performance and the building attributes, then that allows us to identify as soon as the building, goes outside of its normal performance standard, because we're monitoring it continuously. And therefore that allows us a pathway or an opportunity to reduce overall operating costs. It's going to allow us an opportunity to identify energy savings, because we're not going to be over consuming energy. It's going to provide us an opportunity to minimize the environmental impact and overall justify capital projects. A lot of what we see as it relates to building management is we are able to maintain the specific mechanics. So we're very good at maintaining boiler operation. We're good at maintaining the day-to-day operation as it may relate to our air handling units, our pumps, our boilers, etc. However, as we know, as it relates to energy management, we can't just look at one end use category. We can't just look at one system. It is a big picture approach. And in order for us to do that, in addition to managing and monitoring individual components of our building, we have to take the big picture approach, which is what energy management does. It allows us to do it all in one step. Having effective and good operation and maintenance plans is a really good way of doing that. And we can track and monitor the impact of any type of changes that we make to our facility through our energy management. And we do that, again, by analyzing the consumption patterns. There are trends that we're looking for, specific values or changes that we're looking on these consumption profiles. And any deviation from what our expectation is could provide us an opportunity to identify if there's an opportunity for energy efficiency improvements. And it also allows us the opportunity to ensure that we're complying with any type of regulation or sustainability goals, which is what our intent is here today. So if we're setting goals that we're looking to reduce energy consumption, for example, by 20% over the course of the next 7 years in our facility, we'd be able to monitor and track that through effective energy management plans. And we're doing that through using Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So Energy Star Portfolio Manager is a platform that has been funded by the Department of Energy for many, many years now. And they have developed an energy management software and platform that is free for the use of the public to be able to energy manage. So it's a great platform that I'll be going over here to identify opportunities for energy efficiency improvement. But more importantly, it's the platform where everything is automated in one area, one place. So one of the biggest things that we're going to have to really focus on or make sure that we understand here is going to be the data that we're looking to gather to be able to track the overall energy consumption in our buildings. And so the first step is really understanding how our energy is being tracked so that we know what we're paying for, obviously, as it relates to our bill, but also we know how it's being consumed within our facility. So when we're looking at electric consumption here, electricity is tracked in terms of kW, which is the demand, that is the rate of consumption. And it's also monitored and tracked in terms of the kWh, which is the actual consumption that our building realizes. So these two points here, we track them separately because they are very impactful as it relates to how we understand how our building is operating. The rate of consumption, which is known as the demand here, is how fast we're consuming energy within our facility. So if we have every single piece of electrical component turned on in our facility at the same time, they all turn on at the same time, then the rate of consumption is going to be much higher because we're consuming more energy in a very short, in an instantaneous moment versus how much energy our building is actually consuming. The rate of consumption or the demand tells the utility how much energy they pretty much need to reserve on the grid for your particular facility, because at any given point in time, they need to be able to provide you the maximum kW that your building has realized. So when we talk about energy efficiency improvement and energy management, there are really two opportunities for energy consumption reduction. There is the opportunity of having energy efficient technologies in your facility where you're just consuming less energy. So for example, you're going from fluorescent bulbs to LED bulbs. That's a more efficient technology and the kWh reduces. And you also have the opportunity of consuming less kW in your facility where the rate of consumption is less. And this could also present an opportunity where you have a lower operating cost. All this can be tracked and monitored within Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which we'll get into here in a moment. Natural gas is measured in either cubic feet or therms, and fuel oil and liquid petroleum gas are measured in terms of gallons. And the reason that we have to understand how what our billing units are as it relates to the fuel source that we have is we want to make sure that we have the proper conversion, which brings me to this portion of the slide here. We measure energy in terms of British thermal units, which is defined as the amount of energy that's required to raise 1 pound of water 1 degree Fahrenheit. Now, when we talk about the amount of energy our building is consuming, we know that our fuel sources are typically electricity and natural gas. Some buildings just have electricity. And when we say how much energy is our building actually consuming, we would not be able to sum up, kWh plus therms. They're different units. So we have to convert everything in terms of BTUs to determine how much energy our building is actually gaining or losing. So making sure that we're tracking and measuring our information in the proper units is going to be really important. And this data is going to come from the utility bills, and we'll go over that in a moment too. Understanding the energy metrics is going to be really important. For our purposes here, we really want to focus on using Energy Star Portfolio Manager to track the energy use intensity as it relates to energy consumption, as well as the water use intensity, how much water our building is consuming as well. The intensity is a measure of how much our building is consuming over an annual basis per square foot. So when we say the EUI, that's the energy use intensity, how much energy is consumed per square foot per year. And when we talk about the water use intensity, that's how many kilogallons our building is consuming per square foot per year. And this is a measure of the functionality of the building's consumption for both energy and water comparative to the building size. So it gives us a measuring point for our building. So typically, we try to shoot to have lower EUIs or lower WUIs here, because if we're consuming less energy per square foot, that makes us efficient or more efficient. And if we're consuming less WUIs, then we're consuming less water per square foot of the building, which is also a measure of efficiency there. So we target, our goals here are always to have lower EUIs or to lower our EUIs and WUIs. Energy Star Portfolio Manager is able to track and trend this data for us. But just wanted to start off with what the definitions are and why we're looking to measure those. When we're talking about our overall energy consumption considerations here, it's important to understand that there is a difference between our site EUI as well as our source EUI. So what is the site energy and source energy here is important to understand. The site energy is the amount of energy that is consumed within the building itself. That's the site energy here. The source energy is the amount of energy that it takes to generate the energy at the power plant and move it and get it to the actual building itself. So when we're talking about overall total operating costs, we are paying the utility for both the site energy, how much energy our building is actually consuming, as well as the source energy, the amount of energy that it takes to get the energy from the power plant to the building itself. So understanding the differences here is going to be really important when we're talking about energy management, setting overall protocol for energy efficiency optimization and improvement within our facility, and understanding that we don't just pay for the site energy, we also pay for the source energy. So wanted to take some time here to kind of go over the electric bill components and understanding where the data is coming from that we are going to input into Energy Star Portfolio Manager and its overall importance here. So our bills do give us a lot of information. Some of us have the luxury of being able to have BAS systems that give us this automated information of how well our building is performing, because there are embedded data loggers within our building and within the tracking system. However, there are sites and facilities where we don't have BAS systems that automate the overall functionality or the instant reads of the buildings, and a lot of it has to be done manually. And to take it a step further, some facilities don't have the capability of having data loggers to track and trend that data, or that might not be something that we have readily available to us at all times. What all buildings will have are going to be electric bills. So our electric bills have components, or they have components on the bills that by understanding what they mean, we can break them down, and it can tell us a lot about how our building is performing. And we also use this data in Energy Star Portfolio Manager to analyze the overall building performance. So the first component is the actual energy rate or the charge, and that is the total amount of energy that's being consumed per month. This is a sample bill from Austin Electric here to determine. It's just a sample bills, but the idea here is it shows you what data is provided for you on your actual utility bill to give us a breakdown of where this information is coming from. So we want to know how much our building is consuming to figure out what the EUI is and what the WUI is that we just saw on the previous slide. And those are going to come from the actual utility bills itself. So For the electric bill, we want to know what the dollar per kWh is, the rate, the energy charge, or the rate. It's the total amount of energy that's used per month. And as we can see here, the bill shows us that this is kWh used is 35,600 kWh. And it tells us what the average cost per day, the average kW used per day, and the days of service. So we know what the total kWh is. And we also want to figure out what the rate of charge is, which is the actual kW. This is also information that's provided for you on your utility bill. When we're doing energy assessment and you're inputting this information, which I'll get into, an Energy Star Portfolio Manager, we are not guessing numbers or estimating numbers. The information comes directly from the utility bills. So whether we have a BAS system, whether you have individual data loggers within your facility or not, that is not going to stop you or hinder you from being able to complete Energy Star Portfolio Manager, because you'll be able to use the data from the utility bill directly, as it provides you the information you need to be able to benchmark. Okay, so this, as I mentioned earlier, this is a sample bill from the city of Austin. Here it tells us what the customer charges. It tells us what the demand charge is. Here, the KW, as I had mentioned, it tells us what the energy charge is for kWh. Now, taking it back to the previous almost 3 slides ago that I had covered, as I mentioned, we are charged for both the kWh as well as the kW. So when we're benchmarking, we're looking for opportunities to reduce the energy consumption, because we're obviously paying for the amount of energy that we're consuming, but we're also paying for the demand. So if we're able to reduce the demand of our building, the demand load, then that will reduce the operating cost. And reducing the demand does not always mean that you have to reduce the kWh. Understanding how your building is operating, how it's consuming energy, as well as when it's consuming energy, is going to be really important and key to identifying these opportunities. And an Energy Star Portfolio Manager does that for you. But it's important to understand where the data is coming from, because if we have bad data for assessment and analysis, then we're not going to be able to have good results for benchmarking or building performance assessment. So again, the information is coming from the bills. You have the KW information here, you have your kWh information here, what your overall charges are, and then you have other adjustment factors, administrative costs that you pay for, other charges that your utility bill charges you based on how much energy your building is performing, or sometimes the municipality that you fall within. Okay, but we're looking, for the purpose of Energy Star Portfolio Manager, we are looking for what our kWh is here, and we're looking for what our kW is. From your utility bill, that is the minimum amount of information is that you're pulling. Okay, so when we talk about Energy Star Portfolio Manager here, as I mentioned, it is a free online tool that was developed by the EPA and the DOE, and it is designed to measure and manage energy, water consumption, and as well as energy consumption within the buildings. It is a one-stop shop, really, to allow you to benchmark. It allows you to track consumption. It allows you to set goals. It allows you to visualize your building history. I'll go through some examples of what those look like, but it is really a great tool for you to be able to have a platform to report, track, and trend data. And from there, you'll be able to identify opportunities for energy efficiency improvements as a whole. So again, the fact that it's free gives an even playing field to all facilities to be able to use the platform here, and your data and your ability to use Energy Star Portfolio Manager to the best suited ability for your facility is going to be dependent on how accurate the information is that you're putting into Portfolio Manager. And I cannot emphasize that enough. We really need to just make sure that the data you're putting in is as accurate as possible. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on here. When we talk about our electric bills, for the purpose of SECO here, for the utility management reporting, you are required to submit your Energy Star Portfolio Manager as part of your utility reporting. That is a requirement here, and it is required that you track and trend both water and energy through Portfolio Manager. So you are going to be benchmarking your water consumption as well as your electric consumption, and it is required because you're going to be supporting the utility management report. So again, we want to make sure that our data is as accurate as possible, because this is a requirement that you have as it relates to submitting the information. And overall, it allows the utility management reporting to be accurate as possible. And it also allows them to measure the progress that the state has as it relates to the goal for reducing overall energy and water conservation goals. So it's not just impacting your building's assessment, but it impacts the overall state's measurement of how well they're progressing towards their goal. Okay, when we're talking about Energy Star Portfolio Manager to create this benchmark that you're required to submit, you are going to be required to gather some building data, and this is minimum data that you're going to be required to have in order for you to create your portfolio. And I highlighted here 3 major categories. And there are subsections as it relates to the type of information at minimum that you're going to need. One of the biggest things that you have to identify is what your physical data as it relates to your particular building. So, we have the building address, and then the building type is going to be really important here too. Your building type can be an example of that is going to be like an office building, a school, a hospital, a university. Those are building type categories that you have. And it's also going to be really important for you to identify the number of meters that you have within your facility. So for example, if we have a school and let's say you have a high school and the high school has 3 meters on the entire high school, you are required to benchmark the entire building. Therefore, you're going to be required to pull the meter data or the utility bills from all 3 meters for it to be comprehensive. We are not just going to be looking at 1 meter. If the building has multiple meters, we're going to have to pull the data from all the meters on the school itself, because it is an entire building performance. And you're also going to be required to identify the operational profile. Now, this, while it might seem minute, Energy Star Portfolio Manager has a ton of data that's been programmed into it as it relates to benchmarking. And it also has the capability of comparing your building to other similar building types. So what that means is if your building has activity types that vary based on schedules or number of occupants, you want to be as accurate as possible so that you're compared to the proper building category. And I have examples of what that looks like, but the emphasis here is that you want to make sure that your operation profiles that you input into Energy Star Portfolio Manager are as accurate as possible. So if it's a laboratory, make sure that you select that it's a laboratory. If it's a school, then you select that it's a school. Occupancy profiles also significantly impact the building assessment and the benchmarking. So the nice thing is Energy Star Portfolio Manager does this all for you. But again, if you're giving it bad data, it's not going to give you accurate results. So occupancy profiles. When are your buildings actually occupied? When are the operating times of the building? If it's a school, for example, and school gets out at 3:40, how long does your building actually stay open? These are things that are going to be really important to gather as it relates to inputting the information in Portfolio Manager. This is an example here of how we have one building, and we ended up making an adjustment on here as it relates to the data that was input from Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So when you create Energy Star Portfolio Manager, it's going to ask you for all this information that we just saw on the previous slide: your building type, your occupancy profile, number of occupants, etc. And in this example here, you can see that it's an office building, so we didn't change the building type. The building use stays the same. Square footage also stays the same. But as you can see, as it relates to the operation of the building and the occupants' schedules and the profiles, those numbers ended up being adjusted. So we can see here that you have, in example 1, the weekly operating hours are 45, and we adjusted it in example 2 here to be 98. The number of workers on the main shift are 58, and that ended up being adjusted to 75. And the number of computers from 60 to 75. So while we might say that these are not big changes as it relates to the operation profile, it does significantly impact the overall building benchmarking and the energy analysis of the building. So again, these are just snippets from Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Will ask you for input information about your building performance. I just want to provide an example of here of how it impacts the overall building. So if we go to the next slide here, we could see that in addition to the minimum amount of building information that you're required to get, you're also going to be required to input a minimum amount of energy data. In order for you to have at least one score or one year's worth of analysis, you are going to be, for the purpose of the UMAR, you're going to be required to have a minimum of 12 consecutive months of electric bills, 12 consecutive months of your natural gas bills, and 12 consecutive months of your water bills in order for you to measure your energy consumption and your water consumption. If you do not have 12 consecutive months, you will not be able to benchmark your building in Portfolio Manager. And it needs to be consecutive in that not one day is missing between the bills. Otherwise, it's Energy Star Portfolio Manager is going to read that as missing data, and we don't have 1 year's for full information to be able to create an analysis for your particular building. So in Energy Star Portfolio Manager, this is a snippet here of what it looks like to enter your information. You are going to create a meter for every meter that you have within your facility. So if you have more than one electric meter in your building, you're going to create multiple electric meters there. Figuring out what your units are going to be really important as it relates to the electric, natural gas, and water bill. So going back to the slide that I had of the sample electric bill, you want to make sure that the units that you select here match what are on the utility bill. For electricity, it's kWh for consumption, kW for the demand. For the water bill, you want to make sure that you are measuring it properly as it relates to what's on the utility bill. Typically that's gallons, and natural gas bills are typically measured in terms of MCF. So you want to make sure that you are selecting the proper units here when you're creating meters in Energy Star Portfolio Manager to match what are on the actual utility bills so that your information is accurate as possible. This is an example here of the minimum energy data that is needed. So as I mentioned, you need a minimum of 12 consecutive months for Energy Star Portfolio Manager to be able to track and trend the data. So as you can see here, the start date is January 1st and it goes to January 31st. You have the total kWh, you have the total cost here. There's additional categories for demand, etc. But it will not benchmark if you don't have enough information for it will not benchmark if you don't have enough information for the kWh, and it has to be one consecutive year. So as you can see here, this is February 1st to the 29th, the 1st through the 31st, the 1st through the 30th. Sometimes our utility bills are not that clean as it relates to the start and end date. So just make sure that you're tracking what your utility bills are. Sometimes they'll have 30 days, sometimes they'll have 31 days, sometimes they have 29 days. It varies based on their internal billing cycle, but you should have one full consecutive year. Again, if you're off by even one day, it's going to throw an error out for you, not going to allow you to move forward to the next step because you don't have one full year's worth of data. So this is a very important step as it relates to Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Okay, so this is an example here of the Energy Star Portfolio Manager rating. So as I mentioned, a part of what you're gathering is going to be the building attributes, so the building type, its address, which gives us the weather files. It's also going to ask you for the square footage, the building occupancy profiles, as we saw, the number of occupants, etc. When you input all that information in there, Energy Star Portfolio Manager is able to determine and create a benchmark based on that inputted information. What's really nice about Energy Star Portfolio Manager is, as I've mentioned, it's funded by the Department of Energy, and they have put a lot of money into being able to gather data to be able to compare building types. So in this example here, you select as it relates to Energy Star Portfolio Manager, they give you a total of 18 categories that you can pick your building from. So schools, for example, hospitals, offices, laboratories, warehouses, those are all examples. And there's a total of 18 of those categories. If your building falls within one of those 18 categories, you will get what's known as an Energy Star score. And an Energy Star score is a comparison of your building from one of these 18 categories to a national average. So they, on the back end, Energy Star Portfolio Manager has gathered all this data, and they are able to determine what the national average is for a similar building type that you have that falls in the categories based on size, occupancy, usage, weather file, etc. And they compare your building to the national average, and you get what's known as an Energy Star score here. Okay, and this is really a measurement of the percentile that you fall in. So in this example, we see that the Energy Star score is 77. This means that you fall in the 77th percentile. You're performing 77% better than other similar buildings compared to the national average. If you have an Energy Star score that's 75 or better, then you may be eligible for what's known as Energy Star certification. Basically, you're performing in the 75th percentile or better, and therefore you can get a certification and a plaque that goes on, within your building if you apply and get approved, saying that you have an Energy Star score of 75 or better. So in this particular example here, we could see that we have an Energy Star score of 77. All our building input information is put here. All this information is automatically populated in what's known as the Statement of Energy Performance Report here. And we get what's known as the site EUI. So as I mentioned earlier, Energy Star Portfolio Manager is able to automatically convert all the information that you put in from kWh to BTUs. And it's able to calculate the site EUI, which is the amount of energy that's consumed on site, if you can recall from the previous picture, as well as the source EUI, so how much energy it actually takes to generate the building and get it to your facility as well, is the source EUI. And if you look on this side of the report, we see the national median comparison. So here it says the national median site EUI is 103.7. And so this gives us a point of comparison. So we know that the national average EUI is 103.5. Our site EUI is 75.7 kBTU per square foot per year. That's the measurement here. So the national average is 103.5. Ours is 75.7. So we consume less energy per square foot than the national average. So our building is performing better, hence the higher Energy Star score. Okay. Putting the proper building address, zip code, all of that obviously is going to be really important too, because on the back end, we pull in from an Energy Star portfolio manager, it pulls the weather file for you automatically. And so it really allows you to get everything done for you automatically. If you also look here, the percent difference from the national median is negative 27%. So the amount, the kBTU per square foot per year consumed is 27% less than the national average here. Okay, so there's a lot of information that comes from these Energy Star reports. And again, the emphasis here is that we input as much accurate information as possible in Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So if we look at the data accuracy here on the previous slides, I had two examples of adjusting the number of occupants or the number of computers in the space. And in this example, it's the exact same building with those numbers changed. And we can see here that we go from an Energy Star score of 21 to an Energy Star score of 41, but it's the exact same building. The difference is the number of occupants that we had, the number of computers, the occupancy schedule, input information varied. And as we can see here, it makes a pretty big difference in terms of energy consumed. If we look at the summary profiles here, in this example here, it shows based on the occupancy profile and the buildings it gets compared to. And it tells us that we're consuming 46% more than the national average. When we adjust the occupancy profiles and make it more accurate and reflective of what's actually being realized in the building, we get a score that says that we're consuming 12% more than the national average. Obviously, this is a significant difference of comparison. And again, the emphasis here is the accuracy of the information that we put into Energy Star Portfolio Manager. This is the summary page here of Portfolio Manager. So once you create your profile and you go to the home page, it will show you what the portfolio, this is, the summary of all the data that you have in here. Energy Star Portfolio Manager has many links to kind of guide you and walk you through if you need a refresh or you need some help to create your portfolio manager as it relates to the input information. But I think it's also helpful to kind of just see what the summary page looks like. We talked about what your UMR requirements are for creating portfolio manager. You have to track your energy data and your water data. So once you create your building profile and input all your building attributes, this is going to be the first page it takes you to. And you're going to click on this tab here that says energy. You're going to create meters for your consumption. If you have natural gas, you put natural gas meter and electric meter and input all that information. And then you're going to do the exact same thing for your water consumption. And it will automatically calculate the EUI for you based on that inputted information for water and for electric consumption. Okay.
If you just want to keep sharing, we only have two more slides on fleet, and then we will open it up to Q&A. Yeah, and I'll just cover this real quick. Thank you. So we've reviewed energy and water management. So as I mentioned previously, the Office of Vehicle Fleet Management manages the Texas Fleet Management System, where agencies will report and track vehicle data, maintenance, and cost. This office oversees the state's vehicle reporting system as required by law. So agencies must enter vehicle inventory, cost, maintenance data into this system. In the official record, it's a central repository of fleet information. It streamlines the reporting and supports smaller fleets, as discussed earlier, by eliminating the need to separate systems. And then next slide. Thank you much. So the OVFM produces and maintains some key publications and resources to support effective fleet management. Again, these will be sent out, but these include tutorials, training materials, system guides for agile assets, and fleet management modules, as well as the Texas Fleet Management System. So it also provides some information on batching instructions and templates for importing the fleet data, and fleet managers can use the Office of Vehicle Fleet Management website for training. And staff are available also if you need to contact them via email for additional assistance when you're importing this and if you have any questions. And I think that that is the end of the webinar. So thank you all for being here. Let me go to the chat because I did see some questions at the beginning.
Yeah, there are some
think-
questions. Liz, I can take those.
Okay, yeah, some of them were for the reporting period.
Yes, so the first question was regarding the benchmarking reporting period. So you're going to go back from August of 2024 until September of 2025. That is going to be your reporting period for that's required for the reports. And then somebody else had a question about having district cooling. It generates, we struggle with having consistent, good quality submeters for many of them. Okay, so you're saying you have district, Andy, you're saying that you have district, it sounds like you have district cooling and you don't have reliable submeters to basically figure out how much energy is consumed per building. So I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. You're saying that you take that information for the entire building or for the entire campus to determine what your overall consumption is for the campus, overall square footage, and that's what you're using for the reporting?
And Andy, I've unmuted you if you wanted to provide some.
Thanks. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue. And I think a lot of campuses are served by this kind of district energy system. So we bring in our main utility, electric, natural gas are coming into our plant. We're generating steam and hot water and chill water and then sending that out to the buildings. And so if we don't have consistent good submetering, I can't enter that into Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So then it just becomes kind of I'm checking a box entering that information, and I'm just trying to find better use for Energy Star Portfolio Manager in this situation.
That's a good question to highlight, but it is very difficult in that situation because, as you know, just because you have, even if it was a district scenario and you only had 2 buildings or 4 buildings, it's not even distribution across the board. The loads vary, the building occupancy varies, etc.
Why you have submetering information, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So in this scenario, I mean, even if you did what you're doing, which is I think the best thing that the only thing that you could do where you're inputting the total information, it's not going to give you an accurate realization of what your building is. What you could do on a high level, or the best way that you could use Energy Star Portfolio Manager given the scenario, is just to track what your campus EUI is. So when you're selecting the category of your building, that's not going to do anything for you because obviously you have multiple building types. You don't have submeters to track those, but you could just track your total campus consumption and track the variance of consumption accordingly. So, if you're reducing the amount of energy that's consumed per square foot on a campus level, but that's also not a very accurate measurement of whether you're improving or not, because there are fluctuations, right? And we need to measure those. So in the scenario where you don't have submeters, Energy Star Portfolio Manager is not going to give you an accurate read of how to measure your energy. And I'm not sure, Liz, who would they ask for to get direction on that? Because they can't, in Andy's scenario, using district numbers is not going to give her accurate information, and using Energy Star Portfolio Manager is not of benefit there. So I don't know how they would pivot for.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I don't think there's any easy answer to this. I've experienced it when I worked with a state agency previously. If we don't have all of that detail for all the, all the things coming in, sometimes you just have to report the big number. And so I think there are a lot of institutions doing that. So maybe that's just an FYI for you guys who are kind of planning how you gather this information. And yeah, I guess I asked the question because it's been maybe a year or two since Energy Star introduced the higher education portion where you can rate buildings in higher education. And I was hoping that they would try to do something for this kind of situation, but it doesn't look like there's been any advancements. So that's kind of what I was checking on to see if there were advancements there, but thank you. I know it's a issue, and if you guys have suggestions down the road, I'm open to them. But yeah, just basically highlighting the issue, I guess.
Yeah, the only solution to that is to really have sub-meters. If you wanted to delve into it specifically, you could do some sort of high-level manual calculation to figuring out, number of occupants you have in the space, what type of mechanical systems, loads, and then it would be a manual calculation at that point. And at that point, you wouldn't need Energy Star Portfolio Manager. It would be a different.
We do a lot of that in-house for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good point to raise.
Yes. There's another question here by Sandra. It says, our occupancy can vary depending on events. How do we respond? It depends on your building type. So what kind of building do you have? Is it a building that has, an office space and you have conferences, or can you just let me know what kind of building type it has? A warehouse. Okay. So does your warehouse have an office space associated with that? Okay. So for the office space, just use the average that you would realize across the year, whatever your average is. And if you have events in your actual, if you have events in the actual warehouse itself, then I would just normalize it across the year. Just try to be as accurate for what your average realized is for your building.
And I will get to the hand raise 1 second. I saw a question earlier by, I think it was Valerie. You were asking about the January 1 to December 31st reporting that's due in March. That is something a little bit different, and I will drop a link in here, and Sean Auckland, our senior manager for local governments, can help. But that is for the Clean Air Act. So that is for non-attainment areas in the health and safety code. So it's a little bit different. It's for non-attainment or near non-attainment. And that requires energy efficiency programs in those political subdivisions for institutions of higher education and state agencies located in those specific affected counties in Texas, if that helps. And I just dropped a link for you. Let me go ahead and unmute the hand raise. Okay. You should be able to ask your question now. Is it Hajaz? Hajaz? Maybe it was an accidental hand raise. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions?
Yes, hello. Hello.
Okay, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I think the question was asked about the submetering is a very valid question. So the campus UI may not work because we have multiple type of buildings. So that will be a problematic. So the square footage, that's the best way we're doing right now. I'm actually applying for the SECO loan start program. Over there, I think that's what we're doing, and hopefully SECO will be able to buy in.
So you don't have submetering though right now either.
No, we do have submetering, like other participant was telling us that there's a submetering may not be working all the time. We
Yeah.
have all kind of issues, so it's not reliable.
Correct.
So we don't get that data on the EMS. So that's the reason it's a building level. That's the best way we can do right now, just to square footage proportionally distribute the use by the building. Similar type of building, if it's a office building or so labs or other use type. So that way, that's what I think. That's what we're doing right now for the SECO loan program. So let's see what happens.
Okay, but even then, that's not 100% accurate, because you said the EMS is not available all the time.
But I think if you don't want to do 100%, you're going to spend some money to fix the problem, and then it's a cost issue. So
Yes.
the thing is, it's the best you can do right now, just
Yeah.
to get the information what you have. I hear what you're saying. You want to have everything granular level, but it's not possible sometimes. It's a building level. You have to do building modeling, this and that. It's an effort. So I think that's the best approach we have right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you have intermittent data like you're saying, I think there could be several approaches. I am not able to necessarily say what SECO would approve and not approve, but I can give you some ideas. If you have data from like previous years and you think the load is comparative, let's say you have January through May, and then you have some data that's missing, then they may be able to allow you to extrapolate that from like previous years, with like a confidence factor associated with that. So, but to your point and to Andy's point as well, is if you're missing data, it's not going to be as accurate as possible. You can try to make it work as much as possible. I know Andy said that you guys, they have some sort of internal manual tracking, but if you don't have the meter data, it's not going to be as accurate as possible. And I don't know if I can answer what SECO would accept and not accept in their reporting.
Yeah, so I think the point you made that you can use a campus EUI it may not be a good reflective of the building EUI. So
That's
you can
correct.
already just do a campus, because campus we have a different type of buildings. We have a research building, we have a labs, and athletics, and all those kind of things.
Yeah, I don't think it's accurate at all. I mean, you're not changing the building type, but I don't think using a campus EUI should be the way to go. That would not be, my recommend. I would be surprised if SECO took that.
Thanks.
Of course.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from SECO or anyone else on this chat? And just a reminder, we will send out these documents after, and then we'll get with our community communications manager, and we'll kind of clean up and slice the webinar, and then it'll be on our YouTube page, and I will send out a link to that as well following this.
And I just want to clarify that for the energy waterment plan that I presented, the reports are due October 1st through October 31st for the previous fiscal year of September 1st through August 31st.
Lots of numbers and dates.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you again to everyone that joined. And Asma, thank you for your brilliance in Energy Star. It was very helpful.
Thanks.
And I hope all of you found it helpful as well.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.